All right, today we are diving deep into a single, pretty explosive document. This thing lays out what it calls a map analysis of an alleged corruption network, and the numbers involved are just staggering. So we're going to break down exactly what this source claims and the case it makes for a formal investigation.
And this is the number right at the heart of it all, 805 billion pesos. I mean, just try to wrap your head around that for a second. That's more than the entire yearly budget for many government departments. And the central argument of the source is pretty simple. A sum this huge just can't move around without leaving some kind of trail, right? A paper trail, a digital trail, something.
In this quote from the document, this is the core of their entire argument. The whole idea is that a money trail of this size, and the kind of high-level planning it would take, has to leave behind a footprint, a trail of evidence that someone can actually follow.
So the big question is, who on earth is making a claim like this? A claim this massive? Well, the source document is very, very specific about where this information comes from. They ground it in a real-world public statement.
Yeah, according to this analysis, we're not talking about some anonymous leak or online rumor. They claim it all stems from a public event, a press conference, where a joint statement was supposedly made, putting all of these allegations right onto the public record for everyone to see.
The document gives us a very clear profile of these so-called whistleblowers, 18 former Marines, and it really stresses that their testimony is allegedly built on first-hand experience. The source also makes a huge point about the personal risk these individuals are taking, putting their names, their reputations, and maybe even their own freedom on the line.
Okay, so once we know who is making the allegations, the document shifts gears and gets into the specifics. What exactly does this network they're talking about look like? What are the actual pieces that make up this 805 billion peso map?
Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty, it's really important to understand the method they say they're using. The source calls this a map link analysis. This isn't your classic conspiracy board with red strings going everywhere. It's presented as a structured diagram, drawn directly from the witness testimony, and it's designed specifically to connect the dots between people, places, and the events they allege took place.
And the level of detail they claim is in this testimony is, well, it's pretty striking. The source says it includes specific names, hotels, meeting spots, even supposed security details, and the routes money was moved. The analysis claims to connect government officials, political figures, and even people allegedly linked to the International Criminal Court.
So after laying out all these incredibly detailed claims, the document does a major pivot. It's not just trying to present information, it's making a direct demand. It's arguing that with this testimony now public, the burden of proof has shifted. It's now on the official bodies to either prove or disprove it.
The source hammers this point home again and again. They frame their work not as some wild theory, but as a map that comes directly from sworn testimony. And by doing that, they're making the case that these claims, simply because of where they come from, can't just be ignored. They demand official scrutiny.
And see, this brings it all back to the beginning. The logic they're presenting is that the kinds of activities being alleged here, secret meetings, international travel, huge financial transfers, these are exactly the sorts of things that create a trail in our modern world. They leave footprints. They have to.
Which leads us to the climax of the whole document's argument. It really just boils down to this simple three-step call to action. They're not asking the public to just blindly believe everything. Instead, they're demanding that the proper authorities investigate the testimony, verify the details, and scrutinize the evidence.
And they even go a step further, suggesting exactly how this verification could happen. They list out these concrete, official sources of data that could either back up the Marine story or blow it out of the water. We're talking about real stuff like immigration logs, hotel bills, flight records, and anti-money laundering data.
And that brings us right to the end of the analysis. The document basically frames this whole situation as a fork in the road. There are two potential outcomes here, and they could not be more different from each other.
And here they are, side by side. Is this entire map, all of it, based on the testimony of these 18 men, just an incredibly elaborate political myth? Or, if it's investigated, and if it's found to be true, is this a massive exposure of something far, far bigger? The source argues we can only find out which it is one way, through a real investigation.
And this is the final plea made in the document. It's powerful, it's direct. They're saying whatever you think, whatever the outcome is, testimony like this, with individuals putting so much on the line, it has to be treated with the absolute utmost seriousness. It cannot just be dismissed as noise.
So we end on this question, and it's really the central challenge that this whole source puts forward. It's not just about the details of this one map. It's a much bigger question about how claims this serious get handled. What happens when testimony of this scale is actually taken seriously and investigated to the fullest extent? That's the powerful question this document leaves us all to think about.